Hello, we are the Year 4A Galaxy Dreamworkers.
Our unit was how the world works.
And our central idea was humans and the natural world are interconnected. Our librarian gave us a challenge about global warming, and we wanted to learn more about Antarctica.
We did our research, we read books and articles, and watched videos.
Finally, we wanted to ask our question to a professional.
The marvellous marine biologist Catherine Waller answered our questions from her home in England.
Even some of our Year 1 and Year 2 friends help us with asking questions.
We gave a name, Keep It Cool, for our documentary because we understand how important it is to keep Antarctica cool.
Let's meet with this wonderful scientist and her beautiful cats and enjoy her answers. Our Antarctica documentary, Keep It Cool, is starting.
Hello everybody, I'm called Kath Waller and I'm here to answer your questions on Antarctica. So first of all, I thought I'd show you where I live. So this is my house here, and we're going to go up into my office, and then I'm going to answer all the questions you have about Antarctica. Right, okay, so we're at my office now. Come on in, let's go and answer these questions. So this is my office. So this is my cat, he's called Lucy. Here is another one of my cats down here. So this cat, oh, she's run away. She's called Fluffy. And we've got another cat down there, the black and white one. And he's called Rio. And he's 10 years old now, so he's getting quite old. He doesn't like going out in the rain very much. So you've met some of my cats, you might meet some of the others. Right, first of all, we've got questions.
Yes, we have lots of questions. We just wanted to thank the Year 1 and Year 2 friends for helping us asking questions. And our first question is from Mahir in Year 1A. What science do you do?
What a good question. What science do I do? Well, I do all sorts of cool things. So I go out, and there are beaches in Antarctica, and I go look at what lives on the beaches, and I try to understand how it's there, and how it's going to live, and what it does, and how it moves around. And I also look at things like plastics, so what's on the beach that shouldn't be there, so things like plastic pollution, and how that's going to affect the penguins. So how are the penguins going to be affected by the plastics and other things that are on the beaches, and that's really, really important because we need to protect not just Antarctica but all our beaches and oceans and seas. So what I'm doing in Antarctica is really useful for other scientists as well outside of Antarctica.
Polar bears do not live in Antarctica.
Okay, so this question is from Liam in Year 1 again.
How can people live in Antarctica? It's so cold.
How can people live in Antarctica? It's so cold. Well, it is cold. It's really cold sometimes. But we put big woolly socks, and we put big coats and big gloves, and we wear goggles and woolly hats. And when we go inside, it's really warm and lovely. So you only go outside for as long as you need to do your work. But the sun shines in Antarctica too, and it's lovely. Even though it's cold, it's like being in a warm, sunny freezer. It's really lovely when it's sunny. But you've got to wear the proper clothes, and you've got to have the right housing and right buildings to live in.
The Antarctica has warmed up about 2.5 degrees Celsius since 1950. That's about 5 times warmer rate for the rest of the world, according to NASA.
Okay, so we've got the same question from two of you now. We've got the same question from Siddiqa and from Sophia, both in Year 2.
Hi, my name is Siddiqa. I'm in Year 2A Sentosa class. How do you live in Antarctica? Hi there, my name's Sophia and I'm in Year 2. How do people live in the Antarctica?
How do you live in Antarctica? That's a great question. Some people, like me, only go down to Antarctica in the summer, and they do the work, and then they leave again in the winter. And remember, Antarctic summer is from November, December to February, March, so different to the Northern Hemisphere summer. And some people will stay all through the winter as well, and in the winter there may be only 10 people in a big research station that holds 100 or 150 in the summer. So in the winter there's hardly anybody in Antarctica at all, but in the summer there's lots and lots of people. Not just researchers, there are people who are cooks, who are doctors, who go down to fix the aeroplanes, who go down to run the diving, who go down to do the plumbing. There are lots and lots of people who go to Antarctica who are not just scientists. So it's like living in a little village, and you get to know everybody, and then at the end of the summer we all go away and we leave the people who are overwintering, who are staying there through the winter, and they look after the base through the winter.
87% of the glaciers in Antarctica are getting smaller.
The next question is from Charles, and Charles is in year 1.
How does penguins live on Antarctica?
How many penguins, or how can penguins live in Antarctica? Okay, Charles, that's a good question. All the penguins in the world live in the southern hemisphere, and there are 18 species of penguins, 18 different kinds of penguins in the world, but only 5 of those different sorts of penguins live in Antarctica. And this one here, this is an Adelie penguin, and this is the proper Antarctic penguin. It's little, it's black and white, it is very, very cute, and they can live in Antarctica because they're adapted to live there. So their wings have turned into flippers to help them swim around in the sea and catch fish really efficiently. They've got these very, very small, very small, but lots and lots of feathers that insulate them from the cold, and they've got little webbed feet to help them swim. The number of penguins in Antarctica, it's about 12 million penguins, we think, live in Antarctica. And you can do really interesting things, like you can use satellites and things that are in orbit above us to try and find out where the penguin colonies, so where the penguins live, and you can do that by spotting the penguin poo because it's bright pink. So we can use penguin poo to find penguin colonies from space. How cool is that?
Penguins are the most common birds in Antarctica.
Philippe, in year 4.
Hi, my name is Philip. How many jackets do you have to wear in Antarctica?
He says, how many jackets do you need to wear in Antarctica? That's a really good question, Philippe, because not all parts of Antarctica are as cold as each other. So it depends where you're going, really. But this jacket that I was wearing outside, this is one of my jackets that I wear to Antarctica. You can see it's got our Union Jack flag on it, and it's got the British Antarctic Survey. Let me just get that out for you, the logo there. So this is a jacket that you'd wear when it's sort of like maybe 5 or 6 degrees C. It doesn't keep you very, very warm, but you put a big jacket over the top of that if it was really cold. And you put a big waterproof and windproof jacket over the top of that. So what we do is we build up our clothing in layers. So you wear long sort of thermal leggings and a vest, and then you put your trousers on top of it. And then you might put waterproof trousers on, and then you have perhaps 2 or 3 pairs of socks and big boots that we call mukluks. So it depends where you are in Antarctica as to how many jackets you need to wear, but you could wear 3 or 4 jackets, one on top of the other.
Antarctica is melting. It could raise sea level by 5 meters.
Right, next question comes from Erin in year 4 as well. Erin, you've asked me a very, very, very difficult question to answer.
Why can't you go more deeper in the sea in Antarctica to find the global warming?
Why can't you go more deeply into the sea to find global warming? Now that's a really good question. As you've been told by your teachers, and if you read books and things like that and watch the TV, global warming is happening all over the world, and places are getting hotter, and so the glaciers and the ice in the Arctic at the top of the world and Antarctic at the bottom are all melting. and all of this goes into the oceans, and the oceans cover more of this planet than the land. So most of this planet is ocean, and this is the thing that is taking all this heat that's causing global warming. The ocean is soaking it all up very, very slowly. And so if you go into the ocean, these animals that live on the seabed in the shallow water when it's getting warmer, what they will do is they will start to go deeper because the water's cooler down there, because global warming hasn't quite reached yet. You can see global warming in the sea, and that's a really bad thing because it takes a long time for the sea to cool down once it's heated up. So a really good question, but very, very hard to answer. Well done.
Due to global warming, then, Antarctica is melting. The ice chunks from Antarctica will cause the sea levels to rise.
Right, next question. It's from Michelle in Year 4.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Why doesn't Antarctica have a flag?
Why doesn't Antarctica have a flag? Now, Michelle, that's a really good question too. So, Antarctica doesn't have a flag because it isn't owned by a country. So, countries have flags. So, we in the UK have the flag that I showed you on the jacket, the Union Jack, and other countries have flags to show what the country is. So, but Antarctica doesn't belong to any country. It's a big continent. It sits at the bottom of the world, and there are lots and lots of countries who go down there and do work down there. And each of these countries has signed the Antarctic Treaty. And the Antarctic Treaty is an agreement that the countries that work there will work there together in peace, and to try and do really good science, and to collaborate, and to be really, really supportive of each other. So if you look at the image behind me, this is the Antarctic continent here, and you can see all these different flags of the different countries who work there and have signed the Antarctic Treaty. So Antarctica doesn't have a flag, it has lots and lots and lots of flags that represent all the countries that go there.
The Antarctic Treaty was signed on December 1st, 1959.
Okay, Liam, Year 4.
My name is Liam, and my question is, how fast is ice melting?
Liam, you've asked, how fast is the ice melting in Antarctica? Now again, another really, really good question. But it depends what sort of ice you're talking about. So if you're talking about the ice around the Antarctic continent, so the ice that forms in the sea, then it grows in the winter and it shrinks back in the summer, and it does that every year. So this sea ice melt is staying pretty much the same. It's pretty stable. But if you're talking about the ice sheets, or the bit of the ice that is covering the Antarctic continent, now that's a different matter. So we think that it's melting more quickly than we thought it was melting, and people now have been looking at what's happening on the South Pole, right in the middle of Antarctica, away from the ocean, and where people thought nothing serious was happening, and we know that there's ice melting there. And we know that different places in Antarctica are melting at different rates. So the Antarctic Peninsula, which is this little sticky out bit of land up here, the Antarctic Peninsula points up towards South America. All the glaciers there are melting super quick. And if you count how many glaciers on the Antarctic Peninsula are melting rather than expanding, 90% of the glaciers on the Antarctic Peninsula are shrinking and getting smaller. So that's really, really bad. And we also think that even if we manage to control climate change and keep our temperature that's going to increase to 2 degrees C, by the next century, by 2100, we could have 2.5 metres of sea level change from the ice that's melting from these glaciers. So that's really not a good thing. So that's why we need to all work together to try and do something about this climate change problem.
In March 2000, the largest iceberg ever broke away. The iceberg was 14 times bigger than Singapore.
Now then, we've got another question that follows on from that, from Leo, again in Year 4.
My name is Leo, and I have a question about Antarctica. What happens if Antarctica fully melts, like there's nothing left of it?
What happens if Antarctica fully melts, like there's nothing left of it? So, Leo, if all the ice that's sitting on top of Antarctica melted, we would have a sea level rise of about 70 metres, 60 to 70 metres. That is enormous. That is like maybe a 6-storey house. I don't know how big 60, 70 metres is. You'd have to go out and measure it out in the playground or somewhere. But it's a huge amount. It would mean that places like London and perhaps Singapore and all these coastal cities that we live in will all be underwater. If all the ice melted from Antarctica, you'd have a big rocky continent because there is rock underneath the ice. So Antarctica, the land bit, would still be there. It wouldn't be very big because of the sea level rise, but there'd still be land in Antarctica. But there'd be nothing living there at all. We were talking about how I know that Antarctica was warmer in the past. So this is a piece of fossil wood from Antarctica. So this has come from a big tree that would have been something like a beech tree. So, and we know that these trees came from warmer places. So we can look at fossils like this. It might not look like a very interesting piece of wood or piece of rock, but we can tell a lot of things by looking at fossils such as these.
The content is dedicated to peaceful research activities.
Okay, next question from Elijah, Year 2.
Hi, I'm Elijah. I'm in Year 2A Sentosa class. How do you find food in Antarctica?
How do you find food in Antarctica? Well, Elijah, it'd be really hard to find food in Antarctica because you can't grow anything because there's no soil. So every single thing that everybody in Antarctica eats has to be brought in from outside. So it comes in ships and sometimes in planes. So all the rice, all the pasta, all the fruit, all the cheese, every single thing is brought into Antarctica so that we can eat it. We make our own bread on the British basis, so we have flour and we have water and yeast, and we bake bread, and we can cook things, but everything has to be brought in, and then all the rubbish, all the packaging and everything else has to be taken away again at the end of the year. So that's how we find food in Antarctica.
Antarctica is home to about 70% of Earth's fresh water and is home to 90% of the Earth's freshwater ice.
So, the same question from 2 people now. So, Vijant and Atari, both Year 2.
Hello, my name is Atari. I'm in Year 2A Sentosa class. And how do you plug a flag in Antarctica?
Hi, I'm Vijayan. I am in Year 2A Sentosa class. How do you plant a flag in Antarctica?
Want to know how do you plant a flag in Antarctica? Good question, because a lot of it's ice, so it's going to be pretty hard to plant a flag. But as you can see from this picture at the South Pole here, there are flags up there, and this is one of my cats. This is Lucy, and Lucy's saying, "Hello, bye bye." Say bye bye, Lucy. Bye bye. So, as you can see from the picture here, these are flags that have been put up at the South Pole, and the way they do that is they drill a hole in the ice, and then they put the wooden flagpole in there, and then the ice freezes around it again, and you've got a flagpole up. So it's really easy.
30 countries have 80 research stations around Antarctica.
Okay, so next question is from Oliver, Year 4.
My name is Oliver and I have a question for you. The question is, why is Antarctica important to us and the world?
Another really good question, Oliver. Why is Antarctica important for the rest of the world? That is such a good question, and there are so many different ways to think about why it's important. So we've got this really super cold continent at the bottom of the world, and that means that it has a massive effect on the rest of the climate in places, you know, thousands of miles away. The fact that we've got this big cold continent alters the circulation system and controls a lot of the circulation and the weather. And it's important for the rest of the world because there are creatures here that are really rare and beautiful. We don't understand much about them. Some of these animals can produce chemicals that we can use for medicines and things like that. And it's really super important because it brings countries together, and it brings people from different countries together to get to know each other and to work together. It's important we do research there. It's important for monitoring things. So the ozone hole, there's an ozone hole above Antarctica, and once that was found, a global sort of community decided to ban CFCs, so that's greenhouse gases. So these are things that you'd put in your fridges and things like that. When they found the ozone hole, we managed to all agree to stop doing that, and now it's getting better. So that's why it's really, really important.
Antarctica is the dry, big, windy, icy continent.
Next question is from Yuita, Year 2.
I am Yuita. I am living in a Sentosa class. How did you make a house, and how the iceberg will break, but how did you do it?
How do you make a house in Antarctica? That's a good question. So sometimes we don't really have houses, we have what scientific research stations. So we have places where we sleep and where we live, but we also have laboratories and sometimes runways and boat houses and things like that. And we've got to build all of those, so you've got to choose very carefully where to build. And most of the bases in Antarctica are around the edge of the Antarctic continent on rock. So we always build them on rock, and you can drill into the rock and you can put big strong foundations and bolts to hold it up and to stop them from getting blown away, because it's really windy in Antarctica. It's really, really windy. It's the windiest place, the windiest continent in the world. There are some bases, like the ones at the South Pole and the British base called Halley, that are built on the ice. And that's different, that's difficult, because it can sink into the ice. As the ice moves and the building moves, it can get broken up and slowly sink into it. So our British base, we built it on stilts and put skis on the bottom of it so we could tow it around when we needed to. So that's how they built that base there, on skis. And it's bright red and it's bright blue and it's a beautiful looking base. So maybe you can look up some pictures of Halley and see how they built it on the ice with the skis.
Halley Research Station was established in 1956 to study the Earth's atmosphere. Measurements from Halley led to the discovery of the ozone hole in 1985.
So, the final two questions from Bade, Year 4. Bade, you've left the best two, the most difficult two questions till last, and I'll deal with them both together.
Hi, my name is Bade. I'm in Year 4 at Galaxy Dreamworkers, and my question for you today is, how does science help save our world? What should we do to stop global warming and protect Antarctica?
How can science help us save the world, and what should we do to stop global warming and protect Antarctica? So that answers your question, really. Science saves the world because we have to understand what we're doing to the world. And if we understand that, then we can do something about putting it right. So that's how science can help save the world, because we can do things, we can look at what's happening, what we're doing to our planet, and understand what we're doing wrong, and then we can try to put it right. And science can also save the world by producing medicines and vaccines, like for the coronavirus now. So there's lots and lots of ways that science can save the world. But from my science, which I do in Antarctica, that's really important because it helps us understand what might happen if we don't do something to stop global warming and things like that. And we have to try to stop global warming in a number of different ways. So you and me and everybody else here we can do something personally to help. We can stop using plastic water bottles, we can stop using throwaway plastic bottles, we can stop using plastic straws, we can stop using a lot of plastic packaging. We can look at how many times we get in the car and drive around, because that pumps out carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So we can do all these things ourselves to help, because every little bit does help. But we also have to do all the science that we do in Antarctica and everywhere else across the world to show governments and people who make the laws and people who decide what happens. We need to convince them that they have to do or stop doing different things, and that needs to be done by getting all the scientific evidence together and presenting it to them. So that's really important too. So that's how we're going to try and stop global warming. And you can do it, and I can do it, and we can all do our little bit. So hopefully you're not going to use straws, plastic straws and things like that. And we'll all make a little bit of a difference. So that's it. So thank you very much for your questions. I hope you've all enjoyed hearing my answers to your questions. Your questions were great. They were all really good questions, and some of them made me think quite a lot as well. So really well done to everybody for that. We're saying bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Efe and Waller. You helped us out a lot.
Every human is a library.
EtonHouse learner and teacher will never forget your help.
Good. A good clap. You can clap now. Yeah. Brilliant, guys.